No more, no more, no more, no more, no more crumbs.
It's the Value Journey Podcast with Rhonda Jennifer.
No more crumbs. You are royalty, victorious, God's creation. You've been made for so much more. No more, no more, no more, no more, no more.
Often, from our experiences, we are left to feel unworthy, empty, and questioning if we matter. But with God, He reassures us that we do matter, and we do have tremendous value. Have you been conditioned to devalue yourself? Are you settling for a lifestyle of crumbs? Do you question your purpose and value? The No More Crumbs value messages are derived from the Bible story in Matthew 15:25-28, where a woman believed she was only worthy enough to settle for crumbs and never believed she deserved more. Not until she met Jesus. Jesus encouraged her to want more in her life. And with this woman's acceptance of Jesus' love, she was awakened to want better for her life. From this acknowledgement, Jesus commended her on her faith to accept the new truths about herself. The Value Journey podcast is focused on providing supplemental and suggested tools to help you accept the positive truths about yourself and guide you on how to take action steps to activate your truths. God has designed for us all to live a life that is full and enriching. You deserve victories in your life. You are royalty. You are God's creation. You are valuable. Now join me as we grow together with the Value Journey podcast.
Cynthia Walker from S.O.F.I.A and from episode 9 referred us to today's guest. Wanda Edwards is a survivor of domestic violence and has also overcome years of struggling with drug addiction. She has said that becoming an advocate against domestic violence with S.O.F.I.A, a nonprofit domestic violence awareness organization, has helped her find her way back to herself. Wanda realized there was power and healing in sharing her story with others. She continues to facilitate powerful and relevant seminars and workshops for women and young girls. She was a recipient of several awards. She is the producer of the film Colors of Survival, which premiered in October 2016. In 2018, Wanda wrote and produced the stage play Not Just October. Wanda's greatest joy is her children and grandchildren, whom she lovingly refers to as her three squared.
Thank you so much, Minister Wanda, for sharing your time with us. I so appreciate all the wealth of information you're going to share and just your story, all the creative projects you're doing, and any other things that you want to share. So thank you. Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here. I'm glad to be here.
You are such an amazing woman, and you are just stepped out on faith and just courageously, just audaciously pursued your dreams, which is actually blessing others and giving other people courage and hope. Just want to thank you for that, because that takes a lot of courage to do that. So I just want to thank you. I love your statement. It says, I am still here. This signifies your journey.
Sure. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here. My journey it's definitely a journey. And I've been through a few situations that I should not still be here. I am still here with the periods after each word is just very significant for me. And it's not something that I take for granted at all. I was sexually abused when I was a child by like blood relatives. In hindsight, that just set the tone for my expectations of men. My dad died when I was 9. My older brother he's a lot older than me, so he was out of the house. I had no healthy male point of reference. When I met my husband, to me, he was my savior. I was young. I couldn't tell the difference between manipulation and control and love and caring and protecting. I didn't know the difference then. So all of the things that in hindsight were controlling and isolating me, I didn't see it that way. So as a result of that, I became a victim of domestic violence.
So sorry.
You know, Rhonda, I'm going to be honest, because a lot of times in my journey of becoming an advocate and reaching out to other women and being a voice where they don't have a voice and just working with other advocates, a lot of times I'll hear women say, I'm not a victim. And because I'm not a victim anymore, I'm not going to refer to myself as a victim, and I'm not going to claim that. I feel differently about that because I consider myself to be a victim who survived. And if I try to remove myself too far from becoming a victim, then I'm not going to be able to help people. First of all, it's part of who I am. I gained the strength that I gained and the courage that I gained to do the things that I did as a result of that.
Yeah.
I'm not happy I went through it. I'm not grateful. I'm none of that. But in order for me to continue to help people and do the work that I really love to do with victims, I have to keep remembering that I was a victim. I'm not anymore, but I absolutely was. And that's the only way that I'm going to be able to relate to them and that they're going to be able to relate to me. Because anybody that's gone through anything and they're seeking out some advice or help from someone else that's gone through it, they can see right through it. If you're just talking to be talking and you're just throwing out words, they can see right through it. So I have to always remember that. In addition to just getting beat up, okay? I don't share war stories. However, what I do say is that I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused. I did have black eyes. I did have choke marks on my neck. I did have, the first time it was a bloody nose. But in the beginning, I loved him. There was a period of time in the beginning where I was just trying to understand what was going on because I had never experienced this. I never saw it. It wasn't in my head, so this was totally new to me. And I consider myself to be an intellectual. So we're going to sit down and talk about this because I need to know why you're doing this, until I realized that it doesn't matter. The why doesn't matter. And I could ask it. It will never, ever make sense. I left a few times. Took me a while before I actually stayed gone, which is why I'm also very adamant when people ask, why don't they stay? Why don't they just stay? And I simply ask them, just change the narrative.
Yes.
Because they're not, whatever a victim tells you as to why they're staying, you're not going to understand it. So don't ask them that. Ask them, how can I help? How can I help you? Don't ask them why they're staying, because you're not going to understand it. And that's also the most dangerous time, actually, for a victim to leave, or dangerous time for a victim when they decide to leave, because now the abuse and everything is going to be exposed. So the abuser gets even more aggressive and more desperate. My first I am still here was my husband tried to set me on fire. And I'm going to be honest, Rhonda, there was a time when that's kind of all I said, right? If I was talking about it, I would say, well, my husband tried to set me on fire. I never referred to it or internalized it about the night that I almost died. It was too much. I could either tell you what it was, but I couldn't tell you how I felt about it. I couldn't do both at the same time.
Wow.
Now, again, after years of therapy and just going through my journey, I'm able to kind of merge those two things together. What happened and how I felt about it, I can now talk about it from a more authentic place. Not authentic, but from a more personal place, because I separated myself from the incidents, right? And then after I left him, and again, it was just years of back and forth. I used to consider myself, me and my daughters, a Lifetime movie. We ran. We ended up in a shelter, and the shelter saved my life because it gave me a minute to breathe, where I didn't have to run. I didn't have to explain myself because everybody was in the same boat. So we didn't have to explain ourselves. And it just really gave me a minute to just kind of step back and breathe. And a few years later, after that, I became addicted to drugs. Again, this is all hindsight, but up until that time, up until I left, I was just in constant fear. I was in constant fear and survival mode, mainly for my daughter. So I had to stay focused and I had to stay vigilant. And so, but when it was over, I had no idea what to do, Rhonda. I didn't know how to live. No idea.
No. But the courageous thing is that you were getting out to save your daughter's life and your life. So sorry you went through that.
Yeah.
And I was, molested as a child. So that kind of stemmed, that victimization stemmed and snowballed into other victim relationships and
Absolutely.
behavior
Absolutely.
mindsets.
Absolutely. I always talk about too that, a victim didn't wake up one morning and decide to be a victim. Just like an abuser didn't wake up one morning and decide to be an abuser. Something happened to them. And always it's from childhood. Using my story, I said my dad died when I was 9. I just didn't have a positive male point of reference. Now, meanwhile, my husband is growing up with a verbally abusive mother. She was extreme. She was very abusive to him and his brother. She was physically abusive to them, but the verbal was so much worse. It just was worse. My husband grew up, he didn't like women. He didn't like them. He tolerated, he was around them, but he didn't like them. But we came together, coming from our separate times of dysfunction, and it was a match made in hell. So, but I genuinely loved him. And I, in the beginning, I didn't want the relationship to end. And that's what people don't understand. They don't want the relationship to end. They just want the abuse to stop. And so they will stay because they keep hoping. They stay because of children.
Yes.
They stay because they may already be abusing substances to cope. So they can't even think.
Right.
And it becomes normal to them, So there's a few reasons why a victim stays.
And then you want to go back to that love honeymoon stage, remembering that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So that is the hook.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But that gives a birth to a ministry that you have.
Yeah.
It's helping so many others.
Yeah. And I didn't set out to do that. It really was not a conscious thought at all. After I got clean, and that was a struggle. And that's another reason why I am still here, because, when you're using drugs, you're correct. You think you can go anywhere. You think you're invincible. Yeah. So I'm still here because I went to places and saw things and was in situations that only by the grace of God, I made it out. It was part of my journey of getting clean, when I was like going to meetings and I was in therapy, that all of this stuff started to just come out, because I didn't know where to put it before. I put it into the drugs. Talk about it, have a conversation. And then even with going to therapy, I went through quite a few therapists, because we would get to a certain point and I would go, okay, that's the end of that. We're not talking about that anymore. And I wouldn't go back. But when the pain got great enough, I did become very consistent with the therapy. I joined church. I met some women that started to say, me too. The conversations just started to come. And I developed a volunteer ministry at the church that I was at the time. And the goal was to reach out to women in crisis, and that's what we did. We reached out to women in crisis. We had weekend retreats for them because they couldn't leave where they were. So we would do weekend retreats. We would come and talk to them. Some of them wanted to come to church. Some of them didn't. It was fine. But we kind of developed a relationship, myself and the other volunteers with the women. Things just kind of started to snowball from there, because I found that it was helping me. The more that I was able to share my story, the more layers would come off. It was helping me heal. So I was like, okay, if talking about it and walking in my truth, I didn't want people to know. So I would embellish stuff, and if you asked me a question, I would answer you what I thought you wanted to hear, all of that. Once I stopped doing that and really started walking in my truth, regardless of what you think or don't think about it, that was a whole nother opening. That's where the documentary came. That's where the play came from. I didn't care anymore.
Yes.
What you thought. I didn't care, because there's nothing you could do.
Exactly.
I already went through it. So you can't change it, because I actually, that happened to me. I can't change it. But what I can do is walk in it with my head up instead of down. So that was probably one of the biggest parts of my healing, was really, really learning to walk in my truth.
Yeah, and that's where God was leading me as well, because he had me to start my books, my journey, and to tell my story, because
Yeah.
that was huge for me. And
Yes.
I thought, oh, let me hide behind, I could hide behind the books. But then the Lord led me now into speaking and reaching out to others. My goal is to help other people that don't have the resources or don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing, and
Yeah.
opening up avenues for women to really talk about it and to get the support,
Yes.
healing.
Yes.
So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it wasn't in your intention, but I'm glad that you didn't give up and you
No.
wanted to pay it forward.
Yeah. And I knew that there was something that I was supposed to do. And again, in my process of just going through therapy, going to meetings, starting, support group, working with S.O.F.I.A, I started to realize that people don't like to talk about domestic violence, but they will listen. They will listen. And so that really became the premise for the play, Not Just October, because it centers around some key topics like why did she stay, warning signs, things like that. But we're having a conversation. So the audience is actually watching us have a conversation about it. What happened, educating along the way as we're just having a conversation with each other. I didn't expect the response that we got. I really didn't. I was completely blown away. We did a sold out show. We had to do an encore, which we were going to do the play and thank you so much for coming out. And it was like, no, we have to do it again. We did another show. We did an encore show. The cast, the ladies that were in the play, because they were all survivors. They're all survivors. They just started to get all these questions from their friends and from their family. And that was the goal, to get people to start talking and realize it's not that scary. It's just a conversation. And especially if you know someone, because unfortunately, when it comes to domestic violence, there's not a whole lot that we can do until the victim is ready. There really isn't. And it's so frustrating to family, to friends, even to advocates, when we really just have to sit back, offer what we can, and then just pray that they will make the decision, or this will be the time that they will make the decision to leave.
So you're referencing your play, the play, Not Just for October.
Yeah.
And so that was an amazing creation that you had. And could you describe like how it came about and the different parts of it?
I always say that I was on the phone with someone, and to this day, I cannot remember who I was on the phone with, but we were talking about something creative, like we were talking about doing something. It literally dropped in my spirit, Not Just October, literally. Okay, Not Just October. I need 12 women. And that's how it started. I need 12 women because it's not just October. So I need 12 women to represent each month of the year. And so it started out as, the format was initially going to be like the vagina monologues. They were just going to kind of come and speak about their journey 2 or 3 minutes. But once we got together and the women started sharing and we started talking, I was like, oh no, we got to do something bigger because you guys have a lot to say. What we ended up doing was 4 scenes. The first scene was the warning signs. Second scene revolved around safety planning. Third scene revolved around why did she stay? And the fourth scene revolved around the children. And so each one of the scenes also took place in a different setting: home, school, church, work. This happens everywhere. In each scene, one of the women was the focus. She was the focus where she was currently in a situation. And so the other women would start to tell their stories like, wow, we didn't know that was happening to you. This also happened to me. And then in the dialogue was education. In the dialogue was what it feels like within the dialogue, but we were just talking. The first scene was probably the most riveting because in that scene, it sets the tone for the rest of the play. 3 women get together. 1 woman was supposed to come. She doesn't show up. They keep calling her, but she sends them a poem because they're practicing for an open mic. So she sends them her poem and says, hey, can you guys read this to me? I'm not going to be able to make it today. Her poem is about abuse. through that, the women are like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound like her. So they get concerned, they call her, she doesn't answer. The scene ends with when they dial the number, they get the message that says this number has been disconnected. Each scene, right? So now that was at home. So now we go to work, and at the end of the work scene, one of the women says, hey, have you seen Nikki at work? No, I haven't seen Nikki all week. So Nikki follows each scene, but we don't tell you what happened to Nikki. At the end of the play, everybody, what happened to Nikki? Like, you don't tell us what happened to Nikki. And we go, that's the point. We don't know. We don't know what happened to her. She might be dead. We don't know what happened to her.
Yeah.
And that really kind of rocked people, because they were like, hey, where's Nikki? Did you forget that part of the play? No, that's what happens. That is a reality. We know what's happening. We go to try to help. Phones get disconnected. We don't know what happened. We refer to the play as an invitation to have a conversation about domestic violence. And we just try to make it easier to hear, but we emphasize listen when the victim wants to talk, not when you want them to talk, when they want to talk. Listen, believe what they're telling you. Don't question them about, that couldn't have happened. That I know him or I know her. Two different people. That was another revelation for me, Rhonda. I'll never forget it. I forget where we were, but my whole family was there, friends were there, but he was being intimidating to me, like, keeping me quiet. And I remember going, nobody else is afraid of him but me. And I remember having, like, specifically asking, like, my family and some of my friends, like, wait, you all are not afraid of him? No, Wanda, we're not. Because he's not going to do that to us. Wow. So there was little revelations along the way that just started to make me take another look, at things. So listening, believing, and then supporting.
Yes.
Supporting them how they need you to support them, not what you think they need, because everybody's situation is different. We were going to be on the road. We were going to Maryland this year, and then COVID hit. So hopefully we will be able to be back on the road. But I am currently looking into doing it virtually. I just want to take my time with that, because it's got to come across the way that we want it to come across. So I'm taking my time, but we are starting to look into it now that it looks like venues may not be opening up anytime soon.
Right. Oh, please. That would be such a treat. And and this helps you with your advocacy, right?
As an advocate survivor, I do have to fight the urge to say, okay, no, don't do that. Do this, because I did it. So you don't have to go through it. I already went through it. I'm telling you what to do. But it doesn't work that way. And the more that you listen, it also starts to help them to get their voice. If we're not always cutting them off or trying to redirect them, because we have to keep in mind that that's what they're getting at home. So when we don't let them speak their truth or speak however they want to speak, we're actually re-victimizing them, because that's what they're experiencing over here. So now you have an advocate or anybody doing the same thing. They're going to go back to the one that's normal. They're going to go back to the one they know. They don't know this one who they don't receive it in the way that we intend it, in the way that we intend it. So
We're looking at it that way.
Yeah, listening is vital. It's very, very important.
And not judging.
Absolutely not judging.
And providing the resource, I guess, guiding them to the resources that would kind of help them.
Yeah. And that's what we tell, because a lot of times, I answer a phone line for S.O.F.I.A, and the majority of the calls that we get are from friends and family, because they're so frustrated, they don't know what to do, and they want a really quick fix. Tell us what to do. And it's difficult for them to hear, you have to follow their lead. It's very difficult to hear that, but you have to. And, one of the other things too is that if you do have a friend or family member that's going through this, be mindful about saying things like, call me anytime, because victims when they leave, they only have a window. They have a window. So be careful about saying, call me anytime, if you don't mean that. Because you really might get a phone call at 3:00 in the morning that's going to say, please come get me now. And then you'll go get them and you'll bring them to your house and you'll talk them and you'll give them the strength and the pep talk. And then they're going to go back tomorrow. You got to be mindful of those things. And that's why we will educate, the friends and family when they call. Like, we really spend a lot of time with them because they're the closest to the victim, but it's also important for them to know what they're actually dealing with, so that they can be more of a help and not be frustrated, from their end.
Wow, that's a tremendous job, because I would want to give them the pathway on how to do it. But
yeah. And we have to be, and to a certain extent we can, but it's just how we phrase it.
Yes.
And that's where remembering that I was a victim comes in, because when I'm speaking to the victim, I have to be able to identify with what they're currently going through so that I can speak effectively and let them know, listen, you're not alone. I went through the same thing. And a lot of times in me speaking to them, I'm just saying how it affected me, but they'll say, me too. I feel the same way. Oh my goodness. And when I hear that, I just get so excited, because I know a light bulb went off. I don't know when the change is going to come, but I know that that's a light bulb, and they're going to remember that other people have experienced it and they're not crazy. They're going to remember that. So I love to hear the excitement in, oh my goodness, that happened to me too. Because it just lets me know that they're listening and something went off, light bulb went off.
That's right. And they're not alone.
Yeah, and they're not alone.
And then you're a producer of the film Colors of Survival. Could you tell them a little bit more about that?
So Colors of Survival was my very first project. And I was in Arizona at the time. And I just wanted to do something. I met a young lady out there. We're still very, very close to this day. And we were at lunch one day, and I said, her name is Divine. I said, Divine, I want to do a documentary. She said, okay. What kind? I said, well, I want women to tell their stories. I don't know, but I want to do one. And so that night we put a post up on Facebook. Within an hour, we had 25 women in our inboxes. And I called her.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
I called her and I said, well, I guess I have to do the documentary, whether I want to or not, because these are victims. I can't leave them out there like that. So we just kind of started the process, they all came. We sent out an invitation. Out of the 25, initially 15 came. We kind of talked through what our thought process was, how we thought we wanted to do it, and we narrowed it down to 4. And this is the other thing too, when we talk about a victim mentality, even a survivor mentality. There was a couple of women whose abusers were in jail for life, but they still didn't want to be seen. They wanted to remain anonymous. Oh. They did not want to. So, and that was their option, but we were going to videotape you. We can blur your face if you want, we could do that. Yes. But a lot of them were scared. The idea initially was, yes, I want to tell my story. And yet when it really came down to being able to do it, some of them were afraid. And I'll be honest, some of them wanted to do it for the wrong reasons. And I just could, the reason has to be to help it, not to showcase. We're not
or to have bitterness.
Yeah. And so we ended up doing a documentary, and the first woman that we interviewed, she actually came for her sister, because her sister was set on fire by her boyfriend. And this was an example, though, of no matter what a victim does, because her sister went from Chicago to Phoenix. And no matter where she went, he followed her. Police, restraining orders, all of that. He broke into her house one morning while she was taking a shower and set her on fire.
Oh, my Lord.
She lived for 5 months in the hospital. So her sister came to be her voice. And that didn't come out until one of our first interviews. Like we set up the camera, and initially we were like, okay, just talk. Just say whatever you want to say. I'm not asking you any questions. Just talk. And when she said that, she was in the camera and we were both behind the camera, and she was saying about her sister. And we were like, okay, we had to stop after that. And that was when I went, okay, we need to have a professional here when we do this, because I don't know what this is doing to her. I don't know if she's still okay to talk about it, because at that time, I want to say it had happened like 2 years before, so it wasn't a long period of time. So that's when we started to make sure that when we were doing these video, the tapings, that we had a buffer for the women to be able to, and we did that with the play as well, but to have a buffer. So
that's smart, yeah.
Yeah. So we so that was, we covered being the voice. And then another young lady was going through a court order. She was leaving her husband, getting a divorce, custody battle. Courts didn't believe her. So we did a focus on that, because that's where the victims stop a lot of times, because the courts are just not friendly to them. And then one of the other women was church hurt. She experienced going to the people in her church and not getting any help. So we started with them, and then we finished with like a year or two later, and to see where they ended up. So, her sister found out he did go to jail, but then we also found out that while her sister was going through an abusive relationship, so was she. So that came out in part 2. And then the other young lady got through the court. It was a long, horrible process. It was a horrible process, but she got through it. She persevered. And then the other woman too, same thing, kind of coming out on the other side. So we kind of gave a beginning, and then where they ended up. And that debuted in 2016.
Oh man, that was amazing.
Yeah. And I still, I want to show it again. It's like people are asking me about it, and I'm realizing that there's really no reason for it not to be shown, other than I'm just so protective. And, and everybody's, but Wanda, you made the document, like, you got to show it more. But I'm like, okay, if you didn't make it to the debut, then I don't know what to tell you.
I was searching, and I'm like, I can't find anything. Yeah,
I gotta, yeah, because I didn't put it up on YouTube, and everybody, put it on YouTube. And so I probably will. You'll probably see the play being virtual and the documentary up probably within the next 6 months or so. It was a major production. Like, it really was. It was a very big production. Cynthia was in it. Some other advocates were in it. It was a production. And I don't know why I'm not showing it anymore. I need to show it.
Please.
I do. I need to show it. I think I will. Maybe I'll do a watch party.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a great idea. Oh, good.
Yeah, I think I'll show it.
I'll friend you on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, and then as an advocate, do you help people going through the courts and all the other processes and stages?
There are actually different types of advocates, right? So there are legal advocates who specifically take a course to be a legal advocate, where they will go to the court with the victim. They're not given legal advice or anything like that, but in that waiting period, so they have someone to wait with. They'll go and be a legal advocate. I'm not a certified legal advocate. We get a phone call, legal advice or something like that. We will refer them to the Family Justice Center down in Newark. And then we may call, because we have 2 legal advocates. S.O.F.I.A has 2 legal advocates. So we'll call, them, get them involved. There's also another resource that we have, a gentleman who has a protection service for victims. And that's basically what they do, is they'll take a victim from, home to court. If they need someone to go maybe for visitation, drop off and pick up, or something like that. So we may refer to them. We refer to shelters. So a lot of times as an advocate, what I'm trying to do is encourage them and to come alongside them. But unfortunately, we usually never hear from them again. We'll get the initial call. And I always say, okay, call me back, because I want to know what happened. Once or twice, I've gotten calls back to kind of update me on what's going on. But a lot of times we just don't hear from them. We're just not able to do it consistently unless they're in a shelter, because, then they're there so they can get the resources every day. They get the support group, they get the things that they need. But if they're not in that type of environment, it's difficult.
Yeah, and change is scary for people. And
It is.
they're emotionally abused, or, it's hard to even conceive of making changes.
It really is. They can't wrap their head around, and I understand that.
Yeah.
It's just hard to wrap your head around, especially you don't realize how isolated you are until you do try to step out and you realize I can't even hold a conversation, let alone try to get somebody to understand how to help me. I can't even speak in complete sentences. I don't know how to ride a bus. I don't know how to go to the bank. I don't know how to do. So when they get out there and realize that they actually don't have any skills, they go back to what they know because they don't want to, they're afraid, they're embarrassed. So they go back.
And the familiar, even though it's abusive, is comfortable for them.
Yep, familiar pain.
Yeah, and then so say that, as you're progressing in your journey, it's uncomfortable with peace, having all day of peace and
Yes.
being nice to you. That's so foreign, because you're in lifestyle chaos and discord.
That is very true. Don't know what to do with peace.
Yeah.
Don't know what to do with someone being nice to you. And even, for me, I had physical reactions, meaning that you couldn't walk by me very quickly because I would jump. You could not hug me at all for a long time because you got too close to my neck. And those movements around me would trigger, so for a long time, you couldn't even raise your voice because I would get up and leave. Because that raising of a voice meant that something was coming after that. So before that, I'm going to go ahead and leave. And I had someone that I was dating actually sit me down one day and say, Wanda, we just had an argument. I said, okay, and when I explained it, they stopped. We didn't stop arguing or having disagreements, but they were mindful of the tone in their voice because I would get up and walk right out the house. Nope, not going to catch me again. I'm leaving. So yeah, it really is learning how to live again, learning how to function again in what everybody considered normal. For victims, it was not normal.
Just demonstrating the beauty that it's never too late to progress forward, no matter what you've gone through.
That's right.
And you delved into the projects, which are blessing other people, even your self-care, investing in that, which is tremendous.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
And that's hard to, that's hard to get started doing, but it's very important, to do it. And whatever self-care looks like for you, do this, do that. Well, that might not be self-care for me, so whatever self-care looks like for you. And for me, my self-care started with walking in my truth, like really just saying, you know what, all the guilt, all the shame, all the embarrassment, all of that, I'm done with that. This happened to me. I'm still here. Deal with it. And, that was the beginning of my real self-care because now I'm less stressed out. I have less anxiety because I feel like I'm not worthy of something or I'm not good enough. I don't feel that way anymore. And so once I, started to feel better about myself, then I was able to kind of move on to the other self-care things because now I feel like I'm worth it. But I had to feel like I was worth it first.
And you are 100% worth it. Yeah. And so now in your ministry, how is God leading you now? Different avenues, your ministry?
Honestly, it's about a book. There's a book that I need to write. And I just need to continue to be present. I continue to learn as much as I can about domestic violence and about substance abuse, because what I found with victims and survivors, that it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand. Almost every victim that I have spoken to has had some type of addiction. It doesn't always have to be drugs, but it's some kind of outlet, whether it's eating, gambling, shopping, something that they become obsessed with. And it's just a coping mechanism. So I continue to learn as much as I can so that I can be a relevant resource. So I try to have as many resources, as I have. And I think that God just continues to drop things in my spirit to let me know that I do actually have a purpose, even with the documentary, even with the play. To be completely transparent, a lot of the reason why it's not in the forefront is because I don't see it the way that other people see it. And I don't feel, worthy is not the word. There's some part of me that for whatever reason has not embraced that part as my purpose, right? Because I would still struggle with comparing myself to other people. And God keeps telling me, but you have this. I gave you this. Why are you over here trying to figure out what they're doing or trying to do what they're doing when I gave you what else? I gave you something.
Yes.
That's all yours. Why do you want to go and get somebody else's?
Yeah.
This is yours. And so that's why actually I got out of my way, and we had the venue and everything in Maryland. We had even reached out to survivors in Maryland because we were adding to the cast because we were going to be in Baltimore. And then COVID came and we had to postpone.
Oh no.
So now I'm like, okay, got to get up the momentum again. Don't get lost. So now that we are kind of seeing that venues are just not really going to be opening up for that anytime soon, we are starting to intentionally look into, I have to use the word intentionally, because I could look into stuff for years, but
right.
So I have to remind, we are intentionally, actively looking to do it.
Blessing. Yes. Because we need it. We need your play.
Yeah. It'll come. It'll come.
And then even your work, just take your time with yourself. We tend to be harder on ourselves.
Absolutely.
It will flow.
Yep, absolutely. Because it will always come to fruition. It's what God has planned for you, what you're supposed to do. You're going to do it. So you can do it kicking and screaming, or you can do it willingly. But if it's meant for you to be done, it will get done.
And it's so easy to get distracted, doubting yourself. It's just, God is so good and patient with us.
So thank goodness for that, right? I actually had to come off of social media probably the beginning of the year. I was spending so much time looking at what everybody else was doing that I wasn't really focused on what I did, because it's a good play. It's an inspirational play. Yes. And it did change lives.
Yes.
But I had to remove myself from social media because I was posting. I was posting a lot. It was all encouraging and all of that, but I was posting, but I was also comparing. I was posting and I was comparing. So I was like, okay, you need to step away from this, because this is not healthy. You got to focus on what you have and what you need to do. So
it's very overwhelming, social media. My goodness.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. It could put you in a frenzy.
Yeah, you can. And it happens so quickly, Like I look up, I've been scrolling for 20 minutes. Like I throw my phone, like stop. It's a journey coming to self. But like you said, it's really never too late. I'm still learning things about myself. I'm still getting comfortable with certain things about myself. And now, getting older, now I got to deal with that. And I'll be honest, right now, I'm not doing it gracefully. I am not doing it gracefully. I don't like it. But I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get to the other side and I'll settle in.
Yeah.
But, right now, no, I'm not happy about it.
No, me either.
Not at all.
Beautiful.
Not at all happy, but I'll settle in.
So quickly. And I'm like, no, no, I could have done so much now.
Yep, exactly.
Oh my goodness, Wanda, I so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
This is
I'm glad to be here.
I'm inspired, I'm encouraged, and I know others will be as well.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you.
Glad.
And any words that you would like to share before we close?
You know, I started to think about how much my walking in my truth meant to me. And I know I reiterated, but there was so much freedom in that. But it was a process. I would like to share just the 3 things that I did that just helped me.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the first thing was what we were just talking about, comparing. I had to stop comparing myself. And this was way before the play. This was still in my addiction. This was in my recovery, because not only would I compare myself because I felt like I should be doing something different or doing something more, but I would compare myself to try to justify my behaviors, right? So for example, some addicts, when I would go to meetings, they would talk about their kids were taken from them. Well, my kids were never taken from me. I spent 10 days in jail. Well, I never spent 10 days in jail. So therefore, if I want to go get high again, I can, because I'm not that bad. So I had to stop comparing, because that came into judging. And then if people judge me, I get mad, but I'm judging you right back. I realized that I'm going to judge. I'm human. I am going to judge you, but I don't have to bring that to you. I don't have to bring it to you, because it's really none of my business. I can look at it and say, I wouldn't do that, but I don't have to tell you that, because what you do is none of my business. So I had to really stop comparing. And I had to practice that. I really had to practice it. And then the other thing that I had to do was, it's 3 things. And I had to feel, deal, and heal, right? So going through my journey, there were feelings that would come up. And some of them were back from when I was a child. I had a very, very traumatic abortion when I was 16. Feelings would come up about that, because when I had my first child, to me, I have 3 children. Well, I put up 4 because I have 4 children. One of them died, right? And I had to embrace that. Like, I had to embrace that. But I had to feel it first. That's what the drugs did for me. I didn't have to feel anything. But in order for me to heal, I had to feel it. And then I had to deal with it. And how you're going to deal with it, again, it's personal. For me, it was therapy, it was church, it was prayer, it was being honest about where I'm at so that I could get the actual help that I needed. Because if I'm lying to you, you're going to help me based on what I tell you, right? So then I end up going, well, that didn't work. Well, because you didn't tell the truth. And then I had to heal. And for me, healing was about changing behaviors. I had to change behaviors. This was hurting me and it wasn't benefiting me. Then I had to change my behaviors. And it was very, 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 very difficult, because I didn't want to be alone. I really didn't want to be alone. So I went through a whole thing about, I have to find a man. Like, there's got to be a man out there that's going to love me the way I deserve to be loved. It was an obsession, because I hadn't healed from the pain.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So once I healed, not that I didn't want to be alone anymore, but it didn't matter, because I didn't need anybody to validate me anymore. So the feeling, dealing, and healing got me to that place of, I don't need your validation
yes.
anymore. And then the last thing was, for me, I just had to literally start telling the truth, because I would lie about the rug color. Wanda, it's green. No, I know it's blue. Or, I would just lie about the most ridiculous things. Sometimes because I didn't want to be bothered. Sometimes because I didn't want to be embarrassed. Whatever the case was. So I had to really just start, and I had to practice it, telling the exact truth. If somebody asked me a question, or if I was reaching out to somebody, tell the whole story, tell the truth. I had to stop comparing. I had to feel, deal, and heal. And then I had to start telling the truth.
So how does that make you feel now? How does it make you feel?
I feel more authentic. When I look in the mirror, I see myself. I don't just see, I see Wanda when I look in the mirror, because I'm being true to her now. It just makes me a lot more confident, and it also makes me more vulnerable. But that's not a bad thing. That's not always a bad thing, because in that truth seeking and the freedom in that is that I give myself permission to say, I don't know. Somebody asked, I can say today, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, because I don't feel like I have to keep proving myself.
So liberating. It's liberating.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. So it's a lot more, I just feel I'm not afraid to walk in rooms anymore. I'm not afraid to have conversations anymore, because I know that I don't feel the need to make anything up or present something that's not me. If I don't feel like wearing heels, but I know everybody else is, I would wear heels and my feet would be killing me. You know what? I don't want to wear heels. So I'm not wearing them anymore because they hurt my feet. I can still be cute without heels. So it's those little subtle things, but they make a big difference.
Huge. Yeah, that's true. Because we're taking ownership of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. Taking ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Nobody's responsible for my happiness, because listen, if I wasn't happy and you were in my life, you better straighten up. You better figure out how to make me happy. So of course, after a while of bumping my head with that, nobody can, that's my job. That's my job, to figure out what makes me happy and then move accordingly.
And you were courageous to put the work in. We have to remind ourselves.
Daily. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's daily.
But I'm sure now, when we're changing and moving in our positive, moving forward, we're attracting healthier people.
Absolutely.
Found that? Yes.
Absolutely. And not being afraid to let go of those that were not, well, it's not serving us anymore, but just were not on the same page, or just being as positive as we are, as we were. Because, there's always that friend that they're your friend, but they kind of like the fact that you're down, because it makes them look better. I had a couple of people like that.
I had a number. Yeah.
And I had to let them go.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking, actually. But the more that you continue to walk in your truth and walk in your journey, you'll see those things, and you'll become aware. And then you can make a decision that's not just based on emotion, but it's based on you now being aware of your surroundings. And you start to teach people how to treat you.
That's major. Yes, Wanda, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So teach people how to treat you. Always say, be careful what you tolerate, because you're teaching people how to treat you.
Affirming who we are daily. Old recordings will come up again.
Mm-hmm.
We have to tear that down.
Have to tear it down. Yeah.
And what take on forgiveness? Like, how did you process that and go through that?
It took me a long time to forgive him, mainly because he never gave me a reason to. He's since deceased. He's passed away. I guess it's been about 16 years ago now. But even up to that point, he had never given me a reason to forgive him. He never actually changed towards me, or remorse or anything like that. And I think that, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure that I've actually forgiven him.
Yeah. Right.
I think that what I've done is I've just accepted, that this happened to me. I had to own my part, even though, my part was being molested and losing my father. You know what I'm saying? But I had to say, okay, you were accepting of this based on what happened to you before you met him, which was beyond your control. You were a child.
Yes.
Right? But I had to just kind of focus in on my part, and not in a way of blaming myself, but just, okay, how did you get to that place where that was acceptable to you? Mm-hmm. I had to just kind of dig deeper for me. So it just got to a point where I was more focused on just making myself better, that what he did was not of any consequence to me anymore. So, but I don't actually know if I actually forgave him. I don't think I did. I don't think I have. I think I've just accepted what happened to me and got to a point in my life where I was no longer ashamed of it.
Yes.
Because it happened. It happened to me and I survived it. So I think forgiveness is important. And I do think that forgiveness is more for us than the other person. I do believe that.
But you're working it out in your way, you're working.
Yeah, but I work it out in my way. And the best that I could do as it related to him was when he would come up in conversation, or somebody would just, say, so where is he now? Or something like that. My initial response used to be, he's dead. The best I could do is now refer to him as deceased or passed away.
That's huge.
Because I would say it with conviction.
Yes.
I couldn't wait for people to ask me.
Mm-hmm.
So I could say, he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the back of my mind, depending on what we were talking about, I knew that sometimes people might have wondered, well, how did he die? But he's dead, and so all of that story would come out, later, in terms of, he was sick, he was very sick. He had a heart attack. He had HIV because he was an intravenous drug user, and he passed away. He had a heart attack. But the way that I would say it, people would wonder. They would go, oh, because and this has been probably the last 10 years, or so, where that was the best I could do in terms of forgiveness, is refer to you in a more nicer way. Right. When someone asks me what happened to you, I will say he's deceased, or he's passed away.
Right. I congratulate.
And it's hard with my daughters, because he was their father, my husband, two totally different people.
Yes.
Two totally different people. And so, they have their journey, and their process with him, which I don't interfere with. I didn't interfere with it when he was alive. They had their own relationship, and I never spoke that. I never did that, because that's their father. Got a lot of dynamics, that kind of go along with that.
It is.
Yeah.
You are amazing.
Oh, so are you.
You are. You
both are. Thank you.
Oh, you gifted us. Thank you.
Thank you. I was very happy to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
I'm honored. So thank you.
Thank you.
I hope we can connect again. And
absolutely.
And I will find you on Facebook.
Yeah, please do. Please do. And I'll definitely keep you posted. Because we will be doing the play virtually soon. I do have something in the works. I am starting to have intentional conversations.
And pressurize yourself.
Yeah, intentional. So it will happen soon.
Oh, thank you, Minister Wanda.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Valley Journey podcast. And I know you learned so much from Minister Wanda. And I will provide all her information to connect with her. So until next time, I'm Rhonda Jennifer. Thank you.